The text glowed mockingly in the darkness of our bedroom. 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared again, a digital heartbeat of betrayal. I hadn't meant to look at Mark's phone. It had buzzed twice while he was in the shower, and I'd reached for it automatically, thinking it might be the fertility clinic with our latest results. Instead, I found myself staring at Lauren's name. Lauren, my best friend since college. Lauren, who'd held my hand through 3 failed IVF treatments. Lauren, who was now sending my husband messages at 11:43 p.m. I miss you already. Today was perfect. My fingers hovered over the screen. The bathroom door creaked open, steam billowing out. I kept my eyes fixed on the phone, my voice steady. How long? Sarah? Mark's footsteps halted. What are you? How long? The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Mark's breathing grew heavier. 6 months, he finally said. I laughed. The sound was foreign, almost hysterical. 6 months. While I'd been injecting hormones and crying over negative pregnancy tests, you've been fucking my best friend. It's not like that. His voice cracked. You've been so focused on having a baby, you barely see me anymore. Everything is about schedules and temperatures and... Don't you dare. I stood up, his phone still clutched in my hand. Don't you dare make this my fault. Mom's right, you know. A woman your age should have had children by now. Lauren. She understands what I need. The phone hit the wall with a satisfying crack. Mark flinched, but I felt nothing. No tears, no rage, just a cold, crystalline clarity. Your mother. Another laugh bubbled up. Of course. Helen must be thrilled. Her barren daughter-in-law finally getting what she deserves. Sarah, please. Does Evan know? The question surprised even me. Mark's brother had always been kind, always defended me against Helen's subtle jabs. Mark's silence was answer enough. Get out. My voice was steel. Pack a bag and get out. This is my house too. You can't just. Actually, I can. The house is in my name. Remember? You insisted on it because of the tax benefits from my old executive position. The position I gave up because you wanted me to focus on starting a family. He stood there, water still dripping from his hair, looking lost and pathetic in his towel. For a moment, I saw him as Lauren must have, weak, easily manipulated, desperate for validation. Fine. He grabbed some clothes, stuffing them haphazardly into a gym bag. But this isn't over. We need to talk about this properly. Oh, we will. I watched him dress quickly, fumbling with his buttons. Send Lauren my love. Tell her I'll be seeing her very soon. He paused at the doorway, one hand on the frame. I never meant to hurt you. Funny thing about intentions, Mark. They don't mean shit when you're sleeping with your wife's best friend. The front door slammed. I stood in the darkness, listening to his car start up and pull away. My phone lit up, Nina calling. She always had a sixth sense about these things. I let it ring. There would be time for comfort later. Right now, I needed to think. To plan. Lauren had always been so proud of her perfectly curated life, her carefully maintained image. It would be a shame if something happened to destroy all that. I picked up Mark's shattered phone from the floor. The screen was cracked, but I could still make out Lauren's last message, sweet dreams, baby. Tomorrow's going to be amazing. No, Lauren. Tomorrow was going to be something else entirely. Helen Mitchell's perfectly manicured nails drummed against my kitchen counter. 3 sharp taps, a pause, then 3 more. Like Chinese water torture in designer jewelry. Mark tells me you're being unreasonable about all this, she said, examining a spot on her blazer. Really, Sarah, at your age, you can't afford to throw away a marriage over one indiscretion. I continued chopping vegetables for a salad I had no intention of eating. The knife made a satisfying thunk against the cutting board. Did he tell you who he was sleeping with? Well, no, but... Lauren. The tomato split perfectly in half under my blade. Your tennis partner. The one you've been pushing him toward since our second failed IVF. The drumming stopped. In the silence, I could practically hear the gears turning in her head, recalculating her approach. Lauren is a lovely girl, she finally said. From a good family. And she's still young enough to. The knife clattered onto the counter. Get out. I beg your pardon? Get out of my house before I do something we'll both regret. She stood, smoothing her skirt with practiced precision. You know, when Mark first brought you home, I told him you weren't suited for our family. Too ambitious. Too focused on your career. A proper wife understands her priorities. Like Lauren does? Exactly like Lauren does. She reached for her purse, then paused. The fertility treatments clearly aren't working, dear. Perhaps it's time to accept that some women aren't meant to be mothers. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Helen's lips curved into a smug smile, probably expecting Mark. Instead, Evan's voice called out from the entryway. Sarah? You home? Helen's smile vanished. Evan doesn't need to be involved in this. Too late. I moved past her to open the kitchen door. We're in here. Evan filled the doorframe, his usual easy smile replaced with concern. His eyes darted between Helen and me, taking in the tension. Mother, he said coolly. I didn't expect to find you here. I was just leaving. Helen clutched her purse like a shield. Sarah and I were having a civilized discussion about her marriage. Really? Evan's eyebrow rose. Because I just ran into Mark at Lauren's place. Seemed pretty uncivilized to me. The color drained from Helen's face. You went to Lauren's? Someone had to tell her husband. My head snapped up. Lauren's married? 3 years now. Poor guy works overseas most of the year. Engineering contracts or something. Evan's voice was casual, but his eyes were hard. Funny how that never came up in all those tennis matches, right, Mom? Helen's composure cracked. She hurried past Evan without another word, her heels clicking rapidly across the floor. The front door slammed behind her. You knew, I said when we were alone. About Mark and Lauren. Evan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Found out last week. Been trying to figure out how to tell you. Why didn't you tell Mark's precious mother instead? Because she already knew. Has known for months. He pulled out his phone, showing me a series of texts. She's been covering for them. Arranging their meetings under the guise of charity events, tennis lessons. The pieces clicked into place. All those times Helen had insisted I was too tired, too stressed to attend her social functions. The knowing looks between her and Lauren at family dinners. She wanted me gone, I whispered. All this time, she was orchestrating my replacement. Sarah. No, this is perfect. I felt that cold clarity returning, sharper now. Helen's always been so concerned about the family's reputation. I wonder how the country club would react to a scandal involving their beloved social chair. What are you planning? I smiled, thinking of Helen's carefully cultivated image, of Lauren's secret marriage, of Mark's desperate need for approval. Nothing they haven't earned. Evan studied me for a long moment. Just be careful. Revenge has a way of burning everyone involved. Don't worry. I picked up the knife again, resuming my methodical chopping. I'm very good at controlling the temperature of things. You should know that by now. The tomato juice spread across the cutting board like blood, and I felt something dark and satisfying unfurl in my chest. Helen wanted a proper wife? I'd show her exactly what a career woman could do when properly motivated. The country club's annual charity gala buzzed with artificial warmth and whispered judgments. I watched Lauren work the room, her red dress catching every eye, her laugh carrying across the space like wind chimes. Mark trailed behind her like a lost puppy, nodding at whatever Helen was saying to their little group. "You sure you want to do this?" Nina asked, adjusting her camera. As the event's official photographer, she had the perfect cover for capturing everything that was about to unfold. "Just be ready." I smoothed my black dress, funeral appropriate, I'd thought when buying it. Lauren's husband should be arriving any minute. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Evan: "James Adams just cleared security." 5 minutes. I'd found Lauren's husband easily enough. A few calls to old contacts from my executive days, some carefully worded emails about urgent business matters. James Adams had been more than happy to fly back early from his contract in Dubai when I mentioned concerns about his wife's handling of their joint accounts. "Sarah." Lauren's voice cut through my thoughts. She stood before me, champagne in hand, wearing the same fake smile she'd used when consoling me after my miscarriage. "I didn't expect to see you here. Wouldn't miss it." I sipped my water. Helen was very insistent about maintaining appearances. "Yes, well." Her eyes darted to where Mark stood. "Sometimes appearances are all we have. How's the marriage, Lauren? Yours, I mean. Not mine." The champagne glass trembled slightly. "I don't know what you're." "Sarah Mitchell?" A deep voice interrupted. James Adams stood behind Lauren, his face tight with confusion. "I got your messages about the accounts. What's going on?" Lauren went rigid. "James? You're supposed to be in Dubai until..." "Until what, Lauren?" I asked sweetly. "Until the divorce papers were filed? Or until you'd finished transferring his family's inheritance into your private account?" The color drained from Lauren's face. Across the room, I saw Helen grab Mark's arm, both of them frozen in horror. "What is she talking about?" James demanded. "Nothing. She's just bitter because..." "Because you're sleeping with my husband?" I raised my voice just enough to draw attention. "Or because you and Helen orchestrated this whole thing while stealing from your own husband?" The surrounding conversations died. Nina's camera clicked softly, capturing every moment. "That's enough." Mark stepped forward, Helen clutching his sleeve. "Sarah, you're making a scene." "Oh, I haven't even started." I pulled out my phone, showing James the banking records I'd obtained. "Your wife has been very busy while you've been away. Setting up offshore accounts, making large transfers. Helen helped her find quite a creative accountant." James grabbed the phone, his face darkening as he scrolled. Lauren's perfect mask cracked. "It's not what you think," she pleaded. "I can explain everything." "Explain what?" I pressed. "How you and Helen planned this for months. How you used my infertility treatments as cover for your meetings. Or should we discuss the property you bought in your maiden name?" The room had gone completely silent. Helen's social circle watched with barely concealed glee as their queen bee's carefully constructed world began to crumble. "You vindictive bitch," Lauren hissed. "You have no idea what you're doing." "Actually, I do. See, while you were playing happy families with my husband, I was calling in favors from my old corporate days. Did you know tax fraud investigations can freeze all your assets? Even the hidden ones?" James's phone started ringing. Lauren lunged for it, but he stepped back, his face cold. "That'll be my lawyer." "Excuse me." As he walked away, Lauren's composure shattered. "You've ruined everything." "No, Lauren. You did that yourself." I moved closer, keeping my voice low. "You took everything from me, my marriage, my best friend, my dignity. Did you really think I wouldn't return the favor?" "Sarah, please." Mark stepped forward. "This isn't you." "You're right." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. The old Sarah would have suffered in silence, tried to fix things, blamed herself. But you all taught me something valuable about family and loyalty. Nina's camera captured the moment perfectly, Lauren's mascara-streaked face, Helen's horrified expression. Mark's dawning realization that he'd created this version of me. Sometimes, I said, raising my water glass in a mock toast. The only way to deal with toxic family is to burn it all down and walk away from the ashes. The fire alarm chose that moment to shriek to life, sprinklers raining down on designer dresses and perfectly coiffed hair. Right on schedule, thanks to Evan's timing. I walked out dry, protected by the awning, leaving chaos in my wake. Behind me, I heard Helen's outraged scream as her charity gala dissolved into expensive puddles. Sometimes revenge is best served wet. The manila envelope sat unopened on my kitchen counter for 3 days. Nina's photos from the gala were already making waves, Lauren's tearful confrontation with James splashed across social media. Helen's reputation in tatters. But this envelope promised something darker. My phone buzzed. "Evan, have you looked at them yet?" I texted back, "Not ready." The doorbell rang. I knew who it was before opening the door. Mark stood there, looking haunted, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "Lauren's pregnant." The words hit like a physical blow. I gripped the doorframe, steadying myself. "Congratulations. I'm sure Helen's thrilled." "It's not mine." His voice cracked. "She's 3 months along. James's baby. She knew before. Before us." I laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "So she trapped you for nothing." "Sarah, please. I need." "What you need doesn't matter anymore." I grabbed the envelope from the counter. "But since you're here, you might as well see what your mother's been hiding." The photos spilled across the kitchen table, surveillance shots from a private investigator. Helen meeting with Lauren months before the affair began. Bank statements. Property deeds. A systematic dismantling of James Adams's fortune, with Helen taking her cut as the facilitator. Mom wouldn't. Mark's face went ashen. She couldn't. She did. Lauren wasn't the mastermind, she was the weapon. Helen used her to get rid of me, probably planned to discard her too once she served her purpose. I spread out more photos. "Your mother's done this before. 3 times. Different women, same scheme. How did you?" I had resources from my executive days. People who owed me favors. The kind of connections Helen never thought I'd use. I tapped one particular photo. "Remember Caroline? Your college girlfriend? The one who suddenly disappeared after Helen caught her looking at the family financial records?" Mark sank into a chair, his world visibly crumbling. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you need to choose. Right now. Lauren's facing fraud charges. James's lawyers are very motivated, and they've got evidence linking Helen to everything." I leaned forward. "You can keep protecting your mother, or you can do the right thing for once in your life. By helping you destroy my family? Your family destroyed itself. I'm just exposing the rot." His phone buzzed, Helen's face lighting up the screen. Mark stared at it, then at the photos, his hands shaking. "What do you want me to do?" "Testify. Tell James's lawyers everything you know about Helen's involvement. Help them trace the money." "And if I don't?" I pulled out one final photo, Helen with Lauren's predecessor, dated 5 years ago. The woman's face was familiar. Too familiar. "Then I send this to Evan. Let him know why his first wife really left him." Mark's breath caught. "You wouldn't. The old Sarah wouldn't. But you all helped create this version of me. Remember?" The phone kept buzzing. Helen's calls growing more urgent. Mark looked trapped, cornered by his own family's lies. "I'll do it," he whispered. "But not for you. For Evan." He deserves to know the truth. Smart choice. I gathered the photos, leaving him the ones he'd need for the lawyers. You should go. Lauren will be looking for you once the pregnancy news breaks publicly. He stood, aged years in minutes. At the door, he paused. I did love you, Sarah. In my way. Your way wasn't enough. I closed the door on his response. My phone lit up with a text from Nina. Lauren just posted about the baby. Social media's exploding. You okay? I looked at the remaining photos, evidence of Helen's past schemes. Of lives she'd ruined for her family's reputation. The familiar cold clarity settled over me again. I'm fine, I typed back. Just figuring out my next move. Because this wasn't about Mark anymore, or even Lauren. This was about Helen Mitchell, and the legacy of destruction she'd left in her wake. She thought she was protecting her family's reputation. I was going to make sure that reputation was the first thing to burn. The fertility clinic's waiting room felt different now. Sterile. Empty. Like visiting a house you once lived in, only to find strangers had painted over your memories. Mrs. Mitchell? The nurse's voice carried old sympathy. Dr. Williams will see you now. It's Miss Carter again, I corrected, following her down the familiar hallway. My maiden name felt like armor. Dr. Williams hadn't changed, same kind eyes, same gentle manner. But her expression held something new. Concern, maybe. Or pity. Sarah, she said, gesturing to the chair. I was surprised to see your name on my schedule. I need my records. All of them. She folded her hands on the desk. This is about the investigation, isn't it? The fraud allegations against Helen Mitchell? My head snapped up. She smiled sadly. Small community. Word travels. She pulled out a thick file. Helen called yesterday. Tried to access your records herself. Something about proving medical negligence on our part. The room tilted slightly. She what? She claimed you'd authorized it. When we refused, she became insistent. Dr. Williams opened the file. Sarah, there's something you should see. She slid across a lab report dated 6 months ago. My last failed IVF attempt. Look at the hormone levels. I scanned the numbers, then froze. This can't be right. Your body was responding perfectly to the treatment. The embryo was viable. Strong. She paused. Someone tampered with your medication during the critical window. The words hit like shards of glass. How? The prescription was altered. Dosage changed. Another document appeared. This is the original prescription. And this, she placed another beside it, is what was actually filled. Notice the signature? Helen's handwriting. Subtle changes to the numbers. Just enough to ensure failure. My phone buzzed. Evan, Helen's telling everyone you falsified medical records to frame her. Lauren's backing her up. They're going to the board tonight. The room spun. Dr. Williams's voice seemed to come from far away. Sarah? Do you need a moment? No. My voice sounded strange, distant. I need copies. Of everything. Already done. She handed me a sealed envelope. Sarah. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Helen Mitchell has a lot of influence in this community. I stood, envelope clutched to my chest. Not for long. Outside, Nina waited in her car. One look at my face and she knew. What happened? She killed my baby. The words tasted like acid. She made sure I'd never. My hands were shaking. Nina grabbed them. Sarah, breathe. Tell me what you need. My phone buzzed again. Lauren, this time, we should talk. About the baby. About everything. I need you to drive me to Lauren's. Are you sure? After everything. She's pregnant with James's baby. A baby Helen can't control. The pieces clicked into place. And she just gave me exactly what I need to destroy them both. Nina studied me for a long moment. This isn't just revenge anymore, is it? No. I touched the envelope containing proof of Helen's ultimate betrayal. This is justice. The drive to Lauren's was silent. She opened the door looking nothing like the polished socialite from the gala. Her eyes were red, her designer clothes replaced by sweatpants. I was hoping you'd come, she said. Save it. I pushed past her into the house. You're going to tell me everything. Every scheme, every lie, every time Helen manipulated someone's life for her precious family legacy. And why would I do that? I placed the medical records on her coffee table. Because you're carrying the one thing Helen can't control. And trust me, what she did to me? She'll do worse to you. Lauren's hand drifted to her stomach. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. If I help you, she whispered. Then we take her down. Together. I leaned forward. Or you can trust the woman who just proved she's willing to kill an unborn child to maintain her control. Lauren picked up the medical records with trembling hands. As she read, her face went from pale to ashen. Oh God, she breathed. What have I helped her do? The question is, I said, watching her world crumble like mine had, what are you going to do about it? Outside, storm clouds gathered. Perfect weather for what was coming. The Mitchell family estate loomed against the twilight sky, its windows glowing like predatory eyes. The annual board meeting for their charitable foundation was in full swing, Helen's last bastion of power and respectability. Everyone's inside, Evan whispered, meeting me at the side entrance. Mom's about to announce the new funding allocations. Is Mark here? Front row. Looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He touched my arm. Sarah, are you sure about this? Once you do this. Your mother killed my baby, Evan. The words still felt raw. She doesn't get to play charitable savior anymore. Inside, Helen's voice carried through the oak-paneled halls, smooth as aged whiskey. And with these new initiatives, we'll be expanding our support for family planning services. Lauren waited in the shadows, one hand protectively over her stomach. Her testimony would seal Helen's fate. If she followed through. I stepped into the boardroom. Heads turned. Helen's speech faltered. Sarah. Her recovery was immediate, practiced. This is a private meeting. Perfect. Because I have some private matters to discuss. I moved to the center of the room. Like how you tampered with medical prescriptions. How you deliberately sabotaged my fertility treatments. Murmurs rippled through the board members. Helen's smile tightened. You're clearly disturbed, she said. Mark, perhaps you should escort your wife. Ex-wife, I corrected. And I have proof. I pulled out the medical records. Your signature. Your alterations. Your calculated destruction of a viable pregnancy. Those records are falsified, Helen snapped. Lauren, tell them. You witnessed Sarah's instability firsthand. Lauren stepped forward, trembling. All eyes turned to her. But before she could speak, Mark stood up. It's true. All of it. I found Mom's notes. The plans. Everything. Helen's mask cracked. Mark, sit down. She did it before, he continued. To Evan's wife. To others. Anyone who threatened her control over the family. The room erupted in whispers. Helen's face contorted. You ungrateful, she caught herself, smoothing her expression. Ladies and gentlemen, my son is clearly under duress. These accusations are supported by police evidence. James Adams stepped in from the hallway, flanked by two detectives. The investigation into the financial fraud led us to the medical records. Helen Mitchell, you're under arrest. Everything happened at once. Helen lunged for the medical records. Someone screamed. I felt hands grabbing me, pulling me back. Through the chaos, I saw Helen's face transform into something feral, desperate. You think this changes anything? She snarled at me. You're still barren. Still worthless. I protected this family from women like you. No, Mother. Evan's voice cut through the room. You destroyed this family. And now everyone knows. As the detectives led Helen away, her composure finally shattered. Mark. Tell them. Tell them why we had to stop her. But Mark wouldn't meet her eyes. Lauren stepped closer to me, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have told you sooner. About everything. I watched Helen disappear through the doors, her perfectly crafted world crumbling around her. Victory should have tasted sweeter. Instead, I felt hollow. Nina found me later, sitting alone in the empty boardroom. You did it, she said softly. It's over. Is it? I touched my stomach, remembering the child that never was. The truth's out. Helen's going to prison. But I still can't. Sarah. Nina knelt beside me. What Helen did was monstrous. But letting it consume you? That's letting her win. Then what was the point of all this? Justice. Closure. She squeezed my hand. But revenge doesn't heal wounds. It just proves you survived them. Outside, camera flashes lit up the darkness. Tomorrow, the Mitchell family scandal would be everywhere. Helen's carefully constructed dynasty would be ashes. But as I sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of so many lives, I wondered if winning felt this empty for Helen too. If her need for control had left her as hollow as my need for revenge. The night air carried the scent of rain. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, nature's applause for a tragedy well played. The prison visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Helen sat across from me, orange jumpsuit stark against her pale skin. Looking somehow smaller without her designer clothes and carefully crafted persona. I didn't expect to see you here, she said, hands folded precisely on the metal table. I needed to understand. I placed Lauren's latest ultrasound photo between us. She's having a girl. Something flickered in Helen's eyes. And you came to gloat? To show me the grandchild I'll never meet? I came to show you what you failed to destroy. I leaned forward. Lauren's keeping the baby. James is standing by her. Everything you tried to prevent is happening anyway. You think you understand anything? Her laugh was bitter. You saw the medical records. The fraud. But did you ever ask why? Because you're a monster? Because I was protecting them. Her mask cracked slightly. Mark. Evan. This family destroys the women who enter it. Has for generations. I felt the floor shift beneath me. What are you talking about? My mother-in-law did to me what I did to you. 3 times. Her words came faster now. I lost 3 babies before I learned to play by her rules. To become what she wanted. The perfect wife. The perfect mother. So you became her? Continued the cycle? I became stronger than her. Helen's eyes burned. I controlled it. Managed it. Protected my boys from women who would weaken them. Like Evan's first wife? She would have ruined him with her independence. Her career ambitions. Helen's fingers twitched. Like you would have ruined Mark. By wanting a baby? By loving him? By making him depend on you. The words exploded from her. Strong women destroy weak men. I made my sons strong by keeping them dependent on me. The truth hit like a physical blow. You're not protecting them. You're caging them. I'm surviving. Her composure cracked completely. And now Lauren's baby will continue it. Another generation of Mitchell women, destroying themselves to please the family name. I stood up, my chair scraping against concrete. No. You're wrong. Am I? Look at yourself, Sarah. Look what revenge has made you. Revenge didn't make me. I placed another photo on the table, Helen's arrest splashed across the morning papers. You did. Every scheme, every manipulation, every baby you killed made me stronger. Made Lauren stronger. Lauren is weak. She'll fail, just like. She's already succeeded. She's breaking the cycle. I gathered the photos. And so am I. By walking away? Proving me right? By choosing to heal instead of hate. I met her eyes one last time. Your granddaughter will never know you. But she'll know your story. As a warning, not a legacy. Helen's facade shattered completely. Sarah, wait. Goodbye, Helen. I turned toward the door. The Mitchell family line of destruction ends with you. You can't just leave me here. Her voice cracked with desperation. I'm all they have. No. You're all you have. I nodded to the guard. And that's your real punishment. Outside, Lauren waited in Nina's car, her hand resting on her growing belly. Did you get what you needed? She asked. I watched Helen being led back to her cell through the prison window. I got something better. Understanding. And I'm done. The words felt like releasing a breath I'd been holding for years. With all of it. The revenge, the anger, the Mitchell family legacy. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. For everything. I know. I touched her stomach gently. But she's a new beginning. For both of us. Nina started the car, and as we pulled away from the prison, I caught one last glimpse of Helen through the barred windows. A small figure in orange, trapped in the cage she'd spent a lifetime building. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of healing and hope. Tomorrow, I would call the fertility clinic again. Start fresh. But this time, I'd be carrying something stronger than revenge. I'd be carrying freedom. The nursery walls were a soft green, not pink, not blue, but the color of new leaves in spring. I watched Lauren arrange stuffed animals in the crib while her daughter kicked against my palm. She's strong, I said. Like her aunts. Lauren's smile was tentative, still testing the boundaries of our fragile new friendship. Both of them. The invitation to help decorate the nursery had surprised me. More surprising was how right it felt, this quiet act of healing. My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Williams, test results are in. Come see me? Go, Lauren said, reading my expression. I'll finish up here. The fertility clinic's familiar corridors no longer felt like a battlefield. Dr. Williams waited with a different kind of smile than before. The new treatment protocol is working, she said, sliding the results across her desk. Your body's responding perfectly. I stared at the numbers, remembering Helen's tampering. And there's no chance. I'm personally overseeing everything. She leaned forward. Sarah, you're ready. Whenever you decide to try again. The weight of possibility settled in my chest. Not hope, not yet, but its quiet predecessor. Outside, Evan waited on the clinic steps. We'd been meeting for coffee regularly, a simple routine that had evolved into something neither of us had expected. Good news? He asked. I showed him the results. His hand found mine, warm and steady. I saw Mark yesterday, he said carefully. He's starting therapy. Finally dealing with everything. Good for him. The words held no bitterness, only a distant acknowledgement. He asked about you. And what did you tell him? That you're healing. That we all are. A text from Nina lit up my phone. Lauren's water broke. The hospital waiting room filled quickly. James pacing nervously, Nina documenting everything, Evan's solid presence beside me. Mark arrived last, hovering uncertainly at the edges until James surprisingly waved him over. Hours passed. When the nurse finally appeared, her smile told us everything. "Healthy baby girl," she announced. "Mother's doing fine." We filed in to meet the newest Mitchell, though she'd carry the Adams name, breaking one more link in Helen's chain. Lauren looked exhausted but peaceful, her daughter tiny and perfect in her arms. "Sarah," she said softly. "Would you like to hold her?" The baby settled into my arms, her weight both foreign and familiar. She opened her eyes, dark and clear, untouched by legacy or pain. "What's her name?" Mark asked from the doorway. Lauren met my eyes. "Hope." Later, in the hospital garden, Evan found me staring at the stars. "You okay?" "I thought revenge would feel like winning," I said. "But this feels like freedom." "From Helen?" "From everything. The anger. The need to prove something." I touched my stomach, thinking of Dr. Williams's results. "I'm ready to try again. For me this time, not for anyone else's expectations." "You won't be doing it alone," he said quietly. A nurse called us back inside. Through the nursery window, I watched Hope sleeping peacefully, unaware of the generations of pain that had led to her existence. My phone buzzed one last time, a collect call from the prison. "Helen." I declined it, then deleted her number. Some legacies deserve to end. Some chains need breaking. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, free from the shadows of those who tried to define us. Hope stirred in her sleep, one tiny fist raised like a victory sign. Behind me, Evan waited patiently. Ahead, the future stretched out like an unwritten page. I was done with revenge. Done with the Mitchell family saga. But my own story? That was just beginning. Nina's camera flashed, capturing the moment, not for evidence this time, but for memory. For hope. For proof that even the darkest paths can lead to light, if you're brave enough to keep walking. And I was ready to walk forward, leaving the ashes of revenge behind, carrying only the lessons it had taught me about strength, survival, and the power of choosing your own legacy.
What are you preparing for? Tomorrow is your wedding, right? It's better to avoid the rush in the morning. What? It would be embarrassing if you came. Don't come. Are you serious? Why would I lie? Stay home. Okay. Glad you understand. After this, he was about to face hell, but he didn't know it yet. I am Mandy. I live with my husband, Ted, and my son, Keith. Both of them work for a company, insisting that housework is a woman's job and absolutely refusing to help. Initially, it was just my husband who said that, but seeing him, my son started to do the same. That would have been tolerable, but my husband and son look down on me for being a stay-at-home mom. It's true what they say, children grow up in the shadow of their parents. Keith is already 29 years old though. I spend my days being ridiculed for just lounging around at home. They hadn't said such things before. Both of them seem tired from work and take it out on me, as if I'm their outlet. It's frustrating to be constantly criticized, but responding in kind would only make things worse. They say whatever they want, calling me fat, ugly, and a parasite, but I try not to let it bother me. I thought it would settle down soon, so I decided to endure. Keith has a lovely girlfriend named Christina. She is very considerate and kind. One day, she came to visit our home. Christina usually smiled, but that day, her expression was stiff. Keith had told me there was something important to discuss, and it turned out they had decided to get married. While the marriage itself was a joyful occasion, her expression remained clouded. My husband Ted, envious of his son having a pretty wife soon, and my son Keith, boasting proudly. Christina smiled awkwardly. It seemed that Keith had proposed, and they were going to get married. We can finally be together. I'm looking forward to the ceremony. I hate to say this, but weddings are expensive. Have you saved up properly? Yeah. Well. Something wrong? Keith's cheerful demeanor suddenly changed, and he responded tersely, trying to change the subject. That day, Christina was also staying for dinner, and I was preparing the meal. My husband and son were drinking and chatting around the table. Christina sat there awkwardly. Seeing that, I called her to the kitchen to help with serving the food. When we laid the food on the table, my husband and son booed loudly, probably because they were drunk. Didn't we eat the same thing this month? Do we have to eat it again? You should expand your repertoire. Coming home tired, and then this? It's a total mood killer. It's impossible to have a different menu every single day of the month, you know? You're just taking it easy, right? Nice for you, doing minimal housework and still not going hungry. Really, it's enviable. I wish you'd do your job properly. We work hard every day to bring money home. While they continued to complain, Christina ate uncomfortably. After the meal, my husband and Keith lounged around watching TV. I was cleaning up in the kitchen. She helped me, and we chatted while cleaning up. Then, she brought up a consultation. Christina looked around cautiously to make sure they weren't listening. When Keith proposed, they talked about the cost of the ceremony, but he had impulsively said he had saved up. However, in fact, he hadn't. As the wedding preparations were nearing their end and they had already sent out invitations, it turned out there was no savings. The cost of the ceremony exceeded Christina's savings, and they considered borrowing from friends after being honest with them. However, Keith stopped that. How can I do such an embarrassing thing? If we cancel the wedding now, there'll be a cancellation fee. But we really don't have the money. That's tough. Should I pay for it? Oh, but. Not for that foolish son of mine, but for you, Christina. Thank you so much. I'll definitely repay you. Oh, don't worry about paying me back. Consider it a gift. Thank you very much. But if it's difficult, please let me know. I was really looking forward to the wedding from the bottom of my heart, but on the eve of the ceremony, Keith said something awful to me. When Keith came back home because he had forgotten something, I was checking my clothes and belongings for the ceremony. Huh? What are you preparing for? What do you mean, what? I'm preparing for tomorrow. It's going to be busy from the morning, right? I'm getting things ready now, so we can have a little breathing room. What? Are you actually planning to come to the ceremony? Of course, I'm your parent after all. I didn't invite you. Don't come, it's embarrassing. What do you mean by that? It's embarrassing if you come. Just don't. Are you serious about that? Of course I am serious. Just stay home. Oh. Okay. Then I won't go. Glad you understand. Bye then. Watching my son walk away, I sighed. The embarrassment is on him, not me. Whatever happens, I don't care. On the day of the wedding, I was leisurely sipping coffee. While I was relaxing, the ringtone of my smartphone echoed. When I checked the screen, Keith's name was displayed. Since he had hurled abuse at me the day before, I decided to ignore the call. However, the phone kept ringing again and again. As he didn't seem to give up, I reluctantly pressed the call button, and Keith shouted loudly. Hey! I heard from Christina that you are paying for the venue? That's right. But since you told me not to come, I can't pay, can I? I didn't hear about this? Well, I didn't say anything, so naturally, you wouldn't have. It's chaos here at the venue right now. Just come and pay now. What? I'm not coming. Why not? You said you didn't want me there because it would be embarrassing, right? That doesn't matter now. Why are you being so petty? I'm not being petty. It's your wedding day. I'm just doing what you wanted by not attending. If I had known you were paying for the wedding, I would have wanted you to come. So, you care only about the money? What do you think of me? Man, this is so annoying. Do you have a complaint or something? I have plenty. But if it wasn't for everything that's happened, I would have attended your wedding, even if you told me not to. What about everything that has happened? Don't play dumb. After all the times you've ridiculed me, you have some nerve. I can't remember that. I've got other things on my mind. Lost your memory in all the rush? Remember calling me a parasite, saying how envious you are that I just lounge around all day? Who cares about that now? Just bring the money quickly. Who was it that lied about having savings for the wedding? You said it in the heat of the moment and now you're panicking. It can't be helped, right? Marriage is all about timing and impulse. Money can be figured out, but we're running out of time. Isn't that just being unprepared? Now you're left with no option but to borrow from someone. Well, it's not like that. I had a plan, so no worries. Oh really? And who would that be? I heard a rumor that Christina's parents are rich, so I thought they would lend us the money. You're the worst. And? How did that turn out? It was just a misunderstanding. I heard it from someone. Just because her parents have some branded accessories. That's it? Are you an idiot? Damn, I was misled. Can't forgive those guys. Wait a minute. It's your fault for proposing without thinking ahead. What do you mean? It's not my fault. How can you be so careless with your life partner? Poor Christina. She is sweet on me no matter what. She forgave me even when I told her I had no savings. She didn't forgive you. She had no choice but to accept it after the invitations were already prepared. Well, she accepted it anyway, so what's wrong with that? Don't think just because no one says anything, everything is forgiven. Why? You used to endure whatever I said too. It took a lot out of me, you know? So you were aware that you were saying unpleasant things. It's not unpleasant, it's the truth. The truth? You said I was just lounging around at home. Do you really believe that? Do you underestimate homemakers? Yeah, it's the truth. Housework is easy. And yet all you do is make half-hearted meals. Can you prepare 3 meals a day, each with a completely different menu? Food expenses are not a joke, you know. I don't care, I work outside. Oh. She works too, right? Are you planning to leave all the housework to your wife? That's pretty harsh. No one said that. Once our new life with her starts, I'll do my part properly. I'll talk. You're probably just saying that impulsively too. No. I will share the duties. For her sake. If you really care about your partner, you should have thought more seriously about the money. What's with all this talk about money? Is that all you can say? Well, isn't that the cause of all the trouble you're in now? That, and all the abusive language you've used up until now. You've brought this on yourself. If you just brought the money now, it would solve everything. Be useful for once. See? It's because you always talk like that I got fed up. I never thought it would come to you telling me not to attend. All you do is complain. You should have argued back at the time. I could have, but I'm not as free as you think. But it really was hurtful. You should get into the habit of saying what you think. Maybe you should think before you speak, huh? Are you aware of your surroundings? You're shouting. Is that really okay? There was a sharp intake of breath from the other end of the phone. It seemed he had moved somewhere. After a while, his irritated voice came back, more composed. It sounded noisy over the phone, so I assumed he was at the venue, and I was right. You should have said that sooner. Dad was panicking. I just realized it. I didn't think you would shout like that with people around. You must have known. Were you keeping quiet on purpose? You say things without thinking ahead, right? That's why I guessed as much. If you had just quietly brought the money, I wouldn't have had to shout. I'm not coming. Because I'm a nuisance, right? Because I'm just a parasite. Parasite. That's because you do whatever you want at home. You don't even serve us nice food when Dad and I come home tired. I do think about nutrition and taste when preparing meals, you know? We don't need nutrition. Just fry up some meat or something quick. If you only eat like that, you won't recover from fatigue. I cook with your health in mind. It bothers me that you put effort only into that. What else do you do all day? You're probably just watching TV, right? Who washes the clothes you wear every day? The house is always clean because someone is cleaning it, right? Don't get so smug about just that. And who do you think makes sure you can take a warm bath as soon as you get home from work? You don't need to count all those little things. Little things? They seem little to you, but it's hard labor for me. Working at a company is harder. You're just at home, you don't even deal with people. I do too. Ever heard of neighborhood relations? Life would be difficult if we couldn't communicate smoothly. That's just idle gossip, right? You're just playing around. If it looks like play to you, that's because you don't understand it. I'm worried for Christina. Look, she doesn't have to do that kind of stuff. She works outside too. Even if you go to work, you still maintain neighborhood relations, right? Why does it seem like that doesn't exist to you? That kind of neighborly relationship is outdated. What era are you living in? You're going to build a home with her, right? Having supportive people nearby can be a big help. That's outdated. We can live without that, right? When you're in trouble, those people can help you. At least you should greet them regularly, right? Getting too involved like that just complicates things. It's better not to do it. Who said you need to get deeply involved? A healthy distance is good in any relationship. Huh? Acting all high and mighty. That's none of your business. It's because you do things like that you're in the way. Home is the base of life, right? It's not just about food, clothing, and shelter. You have to care about these things too. If it becomes a hassle, we can just move. Are you going to move every time? Yes. If it doesn't fit, it's necessary to escape from that situation. I won't deny that idea. But in your case, isn't it because you didn't try to fit in? I don't have to fit in. They should adjust to me. That's not something someone who moved in later should say. That attitude will cause you trouble. If it does, it's their fault. Not being kind to new residents is not something a person should do. That attitude. It's not just toward me, your mother, huh? What are you talking about? What do you mean? Relying on others, expecting them to do things without thanks. I'm embarrassed for you. What's wrong with what I'm saying? Come on, just come over here already. I don't want to. Come on. Cut it out. Just give me the money, and then you can go back home. You're good at relying on others, right? Can't you get a loan or something? Christina was trying to ask her parents earlier, but I stopped her. Why? Because it would embarrass me. Absolutely not. Did you by any chance say that to Christina? Not to do that because it would embarrass you? Yeah, she agreed, though reluctantly. It helps that she listens to me. I'm really starting to feel sorry for Christina. It's going to be tough after you're married. You're just going to take advantage of her, aren't you? Nobody feels bad about being relied on. You feel the same, right? That's why I need the money. That's just it, you relying on everyone else makes you look like a parasite. What? What kind of thing is that to say? At that moment, the voices of Ted and Christina could be heard over the phone. They seemed worried about him not coming back to the venue. Keith, perfect timing. Can you hand the phone to your father? What? I'm not done talking yet. Just do it. Overwhelmed by me, Keith reluctantly gave the phone to Ted. Ted's voice betrayed a sense of urgency. Look, Christina is talking about canceling the wedding. Keith could be heard in the background, surprised. What? Christina remained silent. Keith was shouting over the phone earlier, and you were on the other end, right? There were a lot of people around. That's right. Keith was shouting without considering his surroundings. Everyone must have been shocked. The guests started making a fuss, thinking something was wrong, and Christina was explaining everything to them. Everything up to now. Everything? Oh, you mean how Keith said he had wedding expenses covered when he actually didn't and was in trouble? Yes. And about how I've been abusive towards you. Oh, like when you got complaints about the meals being the same and me not doing my job as a homemaker? That's right. Both Keith and I got an earful from Christina's parents. Keith's panicked voice could be heard over the phone. He seemed to be desperately pleading with Christina, but no response from her could be heard. Can you come over now? Explain everything and try to convince everyone. Why should I? Didn't Keith tell me not to come? Don't talk like a child, aren't we a family? Don't say things like you're abandoning us. Abandoning? I've endured all this time without giving up. Endured what? Years of abuse from Keith and you. That was just joking around, what are you talking about now? It didn't sound like a joke to me. Do you understand how much it hurt? Okay, I'll listen to all of it at home whenever you want. Whenever? Do you really think we'll still be together? I've been desperate to leave. What? What are you saying all of a sudden? Haven't you noticed how much I've grown to dislike you? You never said anything. Why bring this up now? I did say. I've been enduring. Do you think I wasn't suffering from your words? You never showed any signs of that. That's because I was enduring. It's not like you'd listen to me anyway. Because you were always silent, both Keith and I thought it was okay. This is what happens when you don't choose your words carefully, both Keith and you. So foolish. In the background, Christina's voice could be heard, sounding quite angry. Keith, apparently flustered, seemed to follow after her, and his voice faded away. Do Christina and Keith look like they'll be okay? You seem to think it's someone else's problem. They told Keith to pay them back later for the cancellation fee of the ceremony. Oh, really? Doesn't that mean you'll have to pay some as well? You are his parent, after all. You too, right? Why only me? Didn't I say I'm getting a divorce? It won't concern me anymore, will it? You think that's allowed? At least, Christina and the others are on my side. It seems like the attendees think so too. How coward. Well, that's how it is. I hung up without waiting for his response. Afterward, Ted and Keith repeatedly called, but I continued to ignore them. According to what I later heard from Christina, the wedding was, of course, cancelled. Attendees who learned of the situation blamed Keith and Ted, suggesting they should bear the cancellation costs. As a result, both were looked down upon by the guests and left the venue dejected. After that, my husband and I divorced. Keith and his father are apparently struggling to get by. Keith's friends, who attended the ceremony, naturally began to distance themselves from him, and he ended up taking out his frustrations on his father, Ted. Moreover, this caused Ted to become isolated at work. I could easily imagine the situation, with colleagues finding it difficult to approach him because of the negative aura around him. They had been calling to ask for money, and I could hear Ted sobbing on the other end of the phone, almost making me burst into laughter, which I had to desperately contain. Although Ted and Keith seemed to be suffering, it was just retribution for how they treated me in the past. There was no room for sympathy. I simply responded with a light "Good luck," and ended the call. I then deleted their contact information immediately afterward. As for Christina, she had become disillusioned with Keith and had broken up with him. I feel sorry about the situation but wish Christina happiness. As for myself, I am living alone for the first time in decades and plan to enjoy my newfound freedom for a while.
I've fulfilled the dream that you couldn't make come true for Ben, Auntie. Saying that, my niece Nicole flaunted the newborn baby to me. Seeing me at a loss for words, Nicole wore a triumphant smile. Our baby looks cute like Nicole, right? She'll definitely be a model or actress in the future. My husband Ben added, as if to twist the knife further. I guess we should be heading home. We've boasted enough about our happiness to the single Kathy. I'm very satisfied today. Ben exchanged a look with Nicole and grinned wickedly. What does he think of our child? To me, who couldn't have children. They were flaunting the baby as if it were merely a tool for showing off. My anger was reaching its limits. At that moment, I realized something. Wait, this child. What's wrong all of a sudden? At my inadvertent remark, Ben reacted slightly. I found it suddenly amusing and laughed.
He he he.
I gently stroked the baby's cheek and said, "She looks like an angel, but her skin." As I revealed a certain truth, the expressions of the two, who had been smiling triumphantly, froze instantly. My name is Kathy Simpson, 52 years old. My husband Ben, an executive at a major trading company, whom I have supported as a housewife for many years. Occasionally, Ben brings his subordinates to our home to enjoy my cooking. Most of what comes out of Ben's mouth are his youthful boasts. The subordinates who are brought along often laugh nervously and endure Ben's long talks. When the subordinates praise my cooking as delicious, Ben grins and says, "Well, that's about the only talent she has. She's feeding off a high earner like me, so she's got to do at least this much. Otherwise, she's just a waste." While I wouldn't say it doesn't bother me, I always remind myself that I'm not in a position to argue. We've been married for nearly 30 years, but we've never had children. I had always dreamed of having at least 2 children after marriage and spent time and money on fertility treatments, but we were never blessed with children. Because of this, I always felt a sense of guilt. So no matter how heartless the remarks Ben made, I always laughed them off and endured, thinking, I'll just bear with this. When Ben talked about his work, his eyes would sparkle like those of a boy. And I was happy to be even a small part of that strength. After all, I am in love with Ben. I had one other skill besides cooking: sewing, which I had enjoyed as a hobby since my student days. I started making handmade dolls by mimicking what my mother did. And they were very popular among my friends. Using that skill to help with the household expenses, I began making stuffed toys and Lucky Charms. Although it might not compare to the income of a high earner like my husband. Still, I continued these small jobs, hoping to at least serve Ben delicious meals. On weekends, my niece Nicole, daughter of my sister Megan, who works in a small trading company, would stay over. There was a reason she came to stay, to support a fledgling idol group. The other day, Chris was on TV for a bit. Wow, he was so cool. Nicole arrived, fanning herself with a fan featuring a young man's face. Chris was the leader of that idol group. This idol group performed regularly at a club close to our apartment every weekend. So she stayed with us to attend these shows. Nicole, have you got more merch recently? Every time Nicole visited, the amount of her stuff in our room increased. But you know, when new merch comes out, I just have to have it. Plus, Chris is the most popular, so it sells out immediately. I absolutely have to get it. As the concert approached, my niece was ecstatic. Indeed, it's exciting for a fan to buy their idol's merch. And I used to collect records of my favorite singers, so I understand the feeling. However, I wondered why she needed to bring all this merchandise into our home. If you have so much, it must be hard to carry around, right? Isn't it difficult? It's fine. I'll store the merch here. Nicole casually placed her belongings in a corner of our bedroom. We live in a not-so-spacious place with just my husband and me. What, it's okay. Uncle just comes home to sleep anyway. I resigned myself to accepting my niece's whims. Oh, and this. I almost forgot. Mom gave this to me. Saying that, Nicole took out a package of high-quality tea leaves from her bag. My sister Megan and her husband, Ted, who joined the family business as a son-in-law and worked at the store, occasionally sent gifts, ensuring Nicole always brought a gift each time. You really don't have to go to all this trouble. After graduating from high school, Megan worked out of state until she was 30. Then took over the family's general store. Since a large commercial facility moved nearby, their customer traffic had significantly declined. So I always told them there was no need for such extravagant gifts. Megan always feels sorry for the trouble Nicole causes. My sister would say apologetically over the phone. However, Nicole herself has been overstepping her bounds lately. Even when we, the couple, are not home, she has started to enter our room without permission. Upon inquiry, it seems that Ben had given her a spare key. Since you come every week, having a spare key would be convenient, right? Ben sweetly said to Nicole. As expected of Uncle, you get it. Saying this, Nicole hugged Ben's arm, and Ben relaxed his cheek muscles with a smirk. Sigh. I guess it can't be helped. At first, I tried to accept it as much as possible, but about 3 months later, one day, an envelope filled with cash that was supposed to be in the drawer of the desk in our bedroom had disappeared. When I later asked Nicole about it, she replied nonchalantly, "Sorry, Auntie. I borrowed it because I really wanted Chris's new merch." Nicole looked at me with pleading eyes. But she is also working as an adult and should be earning enough to not struggle financially. Wouldn't you feel more joy buying things with the money you've earned yourself? Well, of course, I want to buy with my own salary, but it's just not enough. Nicole's nonchalant words weighed heavily on me. How much money is she pouring into collecting her favorite idol's merchandise? It wasn't just about the money. Lately, the rate at which my skincare lotions and creams are being used up has accelerated. Ben has never been one to care for his skin, so if someone is using them, it must be Nicole. When I confronted her, Nicole readily admitted to her actions. Sorry, Auntie. I just took the liberty of using them. What does she mean by took the liberty? These creams were quite expensive. I frowned. And Nicole deliberately rubbed her arms and pretended to shiver. Auntie, you're scary. Then Ben came along and said, standing next to Nicole, laughing with her. That much should be okay. Don't just laugh, please give her a proper warning. Don't be mad. You look even older when you frown like that. Ben, who rarely jokes, becomes talkative only when Nicole is around. I found this particularly displeasing. Anyway, it troubles me if you keep using things in our house without permission. Nicole works too, so you should buy your own things. If you use my things without permission again, I won't let you stay over anymore. I'll tell your mother that too. As I lectured Nicole, Ben turned red and said, "Enough already. The things you're using aren't even earned by you, right? I earned everything with my job. I'm not living in luxury. I'm cutting back as much as I can. I'm not using it for fun like Nicole. The money I earned is my own. I say it's okay for Nicole to use it. Just let her use it as she likes." Being yelled at by Ben, I felt like crying. Indeed, most of our income is earned by Ben, so I couldn't argue further. Knowing that Ben would not support me, I felt helpless as my fingers traced the contact of my sister on my smartphone. No. I shouldn't rely on her for such trivial things. I thought just before making the call and returned the smartphone screen to its original state. My sister and her husband are probably preoccupied with their struggling general store right now. Complaining about my husband would only cause them unnecessary worry. Marital problems must be solved by us. Unable to consult anyone, I carried the unresolved feelings as days passed. On a Sunday morning wrapped in genuine coldness of winter, I was invited by a friend from my student days to go shopping. So I wore a fur coat that I had bought long ago and never worn before. I had informed Ben, who had finally taken a day off. "I plan to return by evening, but if I'm late, could you eat first? Just reheat yesterday's leftovers in the microwave. Don't worry about me. Take your time and enjoy." Saying this, Ben sent me off with a broad smile. Ben, who belittles me in front of his subordinates, cares for me gently when we're alone. I genuinely felt happy that I married him. However, when I arrived at the station, my plans changed due to a call from my friend. "Sorry. My husband threw out his back and can't move. I feel terrible, but I have to cancel today's plans. It can't be helped. Next time we find time, treat me to fancy French cuisine." I joked with my apologetic friend and ended the call, thinking, now, what should I do? I had nothing else planned, so I decided to return to my loving husband at home. On the way, I stopped at the supermarket to buy lunch ingredients and headed to our apartment. I thought of making some warm stew for Ben. As I opened the door, the heat from the heating and a strong scent of perfume hit my nose. At the same time, I noticed Nicole's shoes, which I always see on weekends. "Nicole, are you here?" No reply came when I called out. I headed to the living room, but no one was there. Strange, where could they have gone? I definitely felt someone's presence, so it didn't seem they were out. After storing the ingredients in the fridge, I decided to look around the apartment again. I could hear Ben's snoring from the bedroom. Could he be taking a nap this early in the morning? I didn't know much about Ben's work, but being an executive, he must be exhausted on weekdays. So, I thought I should let him sleep on his rare day off. But as I opened the bedroom door to sneak a peek at Ben's sleeping face, an unbelievable scene unfolded before my eyes. On the bed where Ben and I usually sleep, there lay Ben and Nicole, both naked and sound asleep. They were both breathing heavily, completely unaware of my return.
Ah.
"You?" My voice was as faint as a mosquito's. More than anger, I felt a profound disappointment in my husband. After calling out several times, Ben finally opened his heavy eyelids. "What, Kathy? You're back earlier than expected." Ben seemed groggy and closed his eyes again. "Nicole, I'm home." Nicole stretched with a and slowly sat up. Upon noticing my presence, she shook Ben, who was sleeping next to her, saying, Uncle, wake up. We got caught. Wake up." It was like a child who had been found during a game of hide and seek. as Nicole called out to Ben with a mischievous grin. Ben, appearing annoyed, sat up and said with a sigh, "What, we've been caught already," and casually yawned. What does this mean? Faced with the reality of betrayal by those I had always trusted, I had forgotten even to express my anger. Well, as you see, this is the kind of relationship we have. Both of you, get dressed right now. I was surprisingly calm as I instructed the two naked individuals. 2 hours later, my in-laws and my sister's family arrived in response to my call. Sorry, sister, brother, for bothering you during your busy time. Don't worry about us. More importantly, my sister comforted me by rubbing my back, while simultaneously giving Ben and Nicole a piercing cold look. What is this about? Explain so we can understand. Though my sister scolded Nicole, Nicole just looked away and kept sighing, checking the latest news about her idol group on her smartphone. This is not the time for that. When my sister took the smartphone away, Nicole clicked her tongue. Kathy, I'm so sorry our foolish son has done something so outrageous. My mother-in-law, Diane, tearfully apologized. Both in-laws were over 80 years old, and it must have been difficult for them to come here in the cold. Was there really a need to call these old folks here? As Ben spoke irritably, my father-in-law, Robert, slammed the table. Don't you have any sense of responsibility? Exactly. After such a terrible betrayal to Kathy. I can't believe you. My mother-in-law spoke in a disgusted tone, glaring at Ben. Ben, how did this come to be? Can't you give us a satisfactory explanation? There's nothing to explain. Men prefer young and cute girls like Nicole over an old lady like her. Don't lump me together with you. I'm ashamed to call myself a man like you. My father-in-law shouted, red-faced, showing no sign of remorse from Ben. And Nicole too. How could she hurt Kathy, who has always been so kind to her? Where did we go wrong in raising her? Ted, usually a man of few words, sighed with disappointment. Then, Nicole defiantly said, actually, it was Uncle who took care of me, not Auntie. Whenever I wanted something, Uncle would buy it for me. He even told me I could use any of the cosmetics and bags in the house as much as I wanted. That's totally different from my stingy aunt. Nicole, apologize to Kathy now. No way. Why should I apologize to such an aunt? Don't bother apologizing. Even if you did, it wouldn't restore my relationship with Ben. I spoke calmly. What was the point of the 30 years I had devoted to Ben? Despite his demeaning remarks in public, I had endured them all because I believed he loved me. But now, knowing Ben's betrayal, everything I had protected had collapsed in an instant. Let's get a divorce. There's no other option. Are you sure about that, Kathy? When my sister asked me this, I nodded firmly. Oh, thank you, Kathy. Now we can get married openly. Saying this, Ben pulled Nicole closer by the shoulder. The two gazed at each other, unconcerned about the family's eyes. On our way here, Dad and I talked. We've decided that if you don't show any remorse, we will cut off our parental ties with you after today. My sister said to Nicole, her voice laced with anger and sorrow. I don't care. I can manage without Mom and Dad, and I'll have Uncle from now on. Then the answer is clear. Don't ever set foot in our house again. Ted spoke in a clear tone. Echoing him, the in-laws said, Ben, we too have decided to sever ties with you as of today. My sister and in-laws apologized to me once more and then left with a heavy atmosphere. Following that, my divorce from Ben was finalized. Through the lawyer, the proceedings resulted in a court order for Ben and Nicole to pay compensation, but Ben insisted, I don't want to burden Nicole. So, he ended up paying the compensation for both of them in full. Less than a month after our divorce, Ben remarried Nicole. I'm an executive at a major trading company. I can easily afford it. I'll give all the joint property to you, the jobless one. Driven by his pride, Ben relinquished the shared assets. Furthermore, having to pay compensation for both put him under considerable financial strain. However, as he is now a stranger to me, I've decided not to worry about Ben's situation and to keep moving forward. I returned to my parents' home and began helping out at the general store run by my sister and her husband. Both of my elderly parents are in a care facility. On days when my sister and her husband visit our parents, I take over the shop. I'm sorry for always making you help out. I'm the one who is imposing. I can't just eat without doing anything in return. My sister and her husband have always been concerned about me, particularly because of what their daughter did. The fact that they are concerned makes me feel even more apologetic. 3 years after moving back home, in the summer, Ben and Nicole appeared before me unexpectedly. Why? As I tended the store, the sight of their smiling faces flashed before my eyes. And a dark, murky feeling seemed to spread inside me. It's been a while, Auntie. As she spoke, Nicole cradled a newborn baby in her arms. At the sight of the baby, I lost my words. If Nicole was holding the child, it must surely be her own. Naturally, that would make Ben the father. Seeing me at a loss for words, Nicole smiled triumphantly. I've fulfilled the dream that you couldn't make come true for Ben, Auntie. Nicole said this while soothing the baby. She used to call him Munkle, but now she just calls him by his name. Faced with this reality, my heart was tumultuously shaken. Just then, my sister and her husband returned from being out. What are you doing back here after all this time? Is that how you greet your daughter who's come home after 3 years? Saying this, Nicole flaunted the baby to my sister and her husband. Look, Mom. This is our child. Her name is Amy. She's your first grandchild. I see. Congratulations. Megan said emotionlessly, without even looking her daughter in the eyes. Nicole turned back to me and smiled. I came to announce the birth. Celebrate with us, Auntie. Meet Amy. Enough. What are you thinking, really? Consider Kathy's feelings for once. Even my usually mild-mannered brother-in-law raised his voice this time. Our kid looks just like Nicole, isn't she cute? I bet she'll be a model or an actress someday. Ben said, beaming with pride. Frustrated, my sister grabbed a broom to chase them out. Please leave now. This is not a place for you anymore. You're disrupting our business, so leave us be. I guess it's time to leave. We've boasted enough about our happiness to lonely Kathy today, and I'm very satisfied. Ben and Nicole exchanged glances, both wearing smug smiles. What do they think of their child? It seems like they use her as a tool to flaunt their supposed superiority. I looked at the baby in Nicole's arms with a heavy heart. At that moment, I realized something. Wait. This child. What's wrong all of a sudden? As I tilted my head, Ben looked puzzled. Suddenly amused, I began to laugh.
He.
What's going on? Why start laughing all of a sudden? Maybe Auntie has gone crazy from the shock. I gently stroked the baby's cheek and said, she looks like an angel, but her skin. What about her skin? Is there something wrong? She looks very healthy. Her lovely tan is quite different from yours, Ben. Indeed, the baby's skin was a beautiful tan, markedly different from Ben's fair complexion. So? What about it? There's no one with such a tan in my family or relatives. Is that strange? There are plenty of tan people in the world.
Ah,
That reminds me. Nicole said her great-grandfather was tan. That's called skipping generations, right? Ben said, pointing his finger knowledgeably, but at that moment, my suspicion about Nicole turned into certainty. Impossible. Huh? What do you mean impossible? Ben, suddenly seized by insecurity, raised his voice and questioned me. I walked away and pulled an old album from the closet in the room my grandparents had used. Here it is, something I want Ben to see. Saying this, I showed him a photo from the album. It's just a family photo. In the photo were my sister and I, our parents, and our grandparents. It was taken in front of the store when my parents started their business. The tall man on the right, that's my grandfather, your great-grandfather, Nicole. So? It's just a normal family photo everywhere. Don't you see yet? Look closely at my grandfather's skin. His skin? He's quite fair. So what? It's normal, right? Ben still seemed unable to grasp reality. In contrast to his bewildered look, Nicole's face was turning pale. It's a waste of time being here. Let's go back and feed Amy milk. Nicole tugged at Ben's shirt hem. Unaware Ben was prompted by Nicole to leave, I decided to give them one more clue. There's no one with tan skin in my family, not just my grandfather. None of my relatives either. Wait, you mean? It seemed Ben finally understood what I was implying. Meaning, the chances of you two having a tan child are 0. I stated emphatically. Ben's body started to tremble. So, it's a waste of time being here. Let's go back, shall we? Nicole urged Ben to leave, but now that he understood the situation, he hesitated. Turning to Nicole, Ben confronted her sternly. What does this mean? There's no way we could have a tan child. Then whose child is this? There's something else I want you to see. Saying that, I snatched the keychain with Chris's photo. That Nicole always carried in her bag and showed it to Ben. Chris is publicly known as being half Mexican and half American. Nicole has always admired Chris's exotic looks, often calling them cool. This guy. He has exactly the same skin tone as Amy. Nicole showed a frightened face, but then she defiantly started to laugh.
ah,
It's finally out. That's right. Amy isn't your child. She's the child I had with Chris. When I seduced him with a little charm, he fell for me right away. With that, Nicole began to boast about her relationship with Chris. You were deceiving me? Like, seriously. Did you really think a young and cute girl like me would be seriously attracted to an old man like you? That's hilarious. How naive can you be? I only approached you because you're an executive at a good company. And looked like you had money. Having a lot of money means I can buy more of Chris's merch. If I buy him lots of gifts, I can have him all to myself. So I was just an ATM to you. Realizing everything, Ben was furious. Obviously. I've been putting up with this for the money. Otherwise, who would share a bed with an old man like you? I let you live your little dream for 3 years. You should be thanking me. What? Before my and my sister's shocked eyes, Nicole and Ben started arguing. Enough from both of you. The baby is crying, don't you hear her? My sister shouted, stopping their quarrel. I don't want to see such disgraceful behavior anymore. You two are nothing to us now, just strangers. Leave right now. Driven out by my sister, Nicole and Ben left. Poor Amy. I genuinely felt this way. Then, 2 months later, Ben came to see me alone. He suddenly knelt down in front of the store and shamelessly begged me. Please, Kathy. Take me back. I had a DNA test done after that. It turns out there's no blood relation between me and Amy. I was deceived. Oh, really, so what? I couldn't stand that Nicole and Chris conned me into thinking I was the father. So, I went to the concert backstage and demanded they pay me back in compensation. Oh my. What a hassle you've been through. While it didn't matter much to me, I decided to listen to him. I had also gathered information from TV and magazines about this. Chris had an affair with a married fan and impregnated her. It was widely reported that he had tricked the woman's husband into believing the child was his. Although the idol group had been known only to a small circle of fans, this scandal had made them nationally notorious. With nationwide criticism, their agency couldn't defend Chris anymore. And they terminated his contract as reported on various talk shows. I saw it on TV too, he got what he deserved. Right? They really are the worst. Ben laughed as if satisfied. Meanwhile, tabloids continued to aggressively investigate, not only Chris but also Nicole. It turned out that Nicole had been involved with multiple men, earning money to lavish on Chris. See? I'm also a poor victim who was deceived by them. So please, let's start over. Rejected. Ignoring Ben's tearful plea for reconciliation, I responded in a monotone voice. Then I called my brother-in-law from the back of the shop to carry Ben out if he refused to leave. If you keep bothering Kathy, I'll call the police. Ted said sternly, and Ben walked away dejectedly. A month later. Although the magazine stories had died down, reports about Chris and Nicole continued. According to articles, Chris, now jobless, was exploiting Nicole. Nicole had started working in the nightlife to earn living expenses. It was difficult for Nicole and Chris to raise a child under financial strain. Ultimately, feeling pity for Amy, my sister and her husband decided to take her in and raise her. Despite everything, this child is still our granddaughter. That's right. The child isn't to blame. While running the general store daily, my sister and her husband took care of Amy. As for me, since then, I moved away from home and opened the sewing school I had always dreamed of. I couldn't always depend on my sister and her husband. Megan had said, "You can stay as long as you like." But when I mentioned I had things I wanted to do, she gladly encouraged me to pursue them. Amy's first birthday is coming up soon. What should I get her as a gift? Half wanting to see Amy and half to see my sister and her husband. I still occasionally visit the family store whenever I find the time. We're living together with Sean and his wife starting tomorrow. Living together. I glared fiercely at Peter. I haven't heard a single word about this. There's no need to say anything, is there? It wouldn't make any difference even if I did. Even if you object, living together is definite. I'm free to say it whenever I want. Peter was completely unrepentant. He must think there's nothing I can do now after the contract is done. That sounds incredibly selfish. Normally, wouldn't you at least discuss it? If I did that, you would just refuse, wouldn't you? Somehow you dislike Sean and Abby. Eventually, when the eldest son, Sean, and his wife arrived, they looked down on me as usual. And Abby said with a smug face, "If you resist, I won't take care of you." She seemed proud, but I wouldn't know what she might do to me if she were to take care of me. And the eldest son and his wife's misunderstandings continue. You're lucky, Mom. You met someone as kind as Dad. Otherwise, you might still be single. Huh? I am single though. Huh? The room went quiet after my unexpected remark. I am Diane Gale, 58 years old. I work as a nurse. It's tough, but fulfilling work. Given my age of 58, people often show concern, saying, "Isn't it tough? You must be tired." But I have something even more challenging and tiring than my job. That's taking care of my husband, Peter, who has retired. Peter is a stubborn old-fashioned man, never did any housework or childcare. Moreover, he has a bad mouth, so instead of being thanked for doing the chores, I get complaints every time. What's this meal? It's bland, bring me salt and pepper. He used to be kinder, and his stubbornness was part of his charm. But people change, and now I can only see myself as Peter's servant. If it were just that, I might have resigned myself to it. But what I regret most is how we raised our eldest son, Sean. I wanted him to grow up proud and kind. I scolded him when he did wrong and praised him when he did right, all with love. However, I wasn't the only parent. You're really hopeless. Peter would often deride Sean with a laugh. He seemed to think it was just a joke, but I was afraid of the impact it would have on a pure child. Please stop saying things that lower his self-esteem. He's still a child, and he might take it seriously. I asked Peter repeatedly. But he never took my opinion seriously, and each time, his sarcasm multiplied towards me. If he can't ignore that, he can't survive. I'm training him for life. You're too stiff.
Ah.
I should have married a more easygoing woman. Peter would say this even in front of Sean. When I blamed him, he would eventually say, "Enough. Divorce then, divorce, and storm off." Furthermore, Peter's infidelity came to light several times. And we faced the crisis of divorce many times. Yet, Sean was fond of his father. If Sean loved him, I couldn't take him away. So, I endured it. Eventually, I got used to Peter's abusive words. But now, I think, if I had firmly separated from him back then, Sean might have grown up better. Sean married at the age of 30. His partner, Abby, is the same age as him. They met through their mutual friend. Nice to meet you. I'd be happy if we could get along. Bright and cheerful Abby was very cute and likable. Likewise, I'm glad someone like you, Abby, is coming to our house. Initially, I thought we had established a good relationship. When she visited our house, she would run up with a smile and say, "Diane, please let me help." That changed about a year after Sean and Abby got married. Really? Abby is cute and easygoing. Sean found a good girl. One night when Sean and Abby were staying over, Peter was in high spirits, drinking alcohol. Right? She's always smiling, the best. She's not nagging like mom. Lets me do what I want, and doesn't fuss. This is the price for not divorcing. Watching me be treated like a slave and looked down upon by Peter every day, Sean learned. Mother is someone to be demeaned. Mother is someone inferior to oneself. If only I had left Peter sooner. I still regret that now. Of course, I warned him, but words from someone he looked down on didn't resonate. Now that Sean is an adult, I've given up on admonishing him. I never thought it would cause even worse effects. That day, as usual, I sighed at their words while preparing dinner. Abby was nearby, wearing an apron. "Could you take this over there?" "Sure." At times like this, Abby's cheerfulness was a relief. I cheered up and moved on to the next dish. Usually, Abby would return soon and ask, "What shall we do next?" But today, no matter how long I waited, she didn't come back. I wonder if something happened. Becoming a bit worried, I headed to the living room where Peter and the others were eating, timing it perfectly with the completion of the cooking. Abby was there, holding a glass and mingling with Peter and the others. Relieved, I placed the food I had brought on the table and sat down. Then, Abby said something shocking to me.
Oh no.
Why are you sitting down, Diane? Aren't you still working? What? I doubted my ears. Looking at her, Abby pressed on with a smile. Because, look. You have to clear these dishes away. It's not the time to be sitting. Seeing my confused, stuttering reaction, Peter and Sean burst out laughing. Nice. Abby, you're the best. Really?
Yay!
Exactly. Mom has been overworking Abby too much. Housework is Mom's job. Don't rely on my precious wife. I hadn't thought it could be this bad. Was it Peter's direction, or perhaps Abby's high adaptability? From that day, even Abby, my only solace, began to look down on me. Whenever Sean and Abby came to visit or stay over, I was naturally expected to do all the housework. While the three of them chatted, I was the only one bustling about. And I had to eat standing in the kitchen. Such had become the rule-like structure of our household. The frequency of visits by Sean and Abby to our house, where they were thoroughly pampered, increased more and more. They also began to demand money and dinners quite brazenly. It was clear they were completely reliant on me. Naturally, my burden grew. I had been at my limit even before, but I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to leave and get out of this house. On the day I made up my mind, Peter suddenly told me. I decided to buy a newly built detached house. What? He said the contract was already completed. What about the money? I paid the down payment with our savings and my retirement funds. The rest will be on a mortgage. It's a 4-room. I couldn't believe it. I was determined to leave. But I was stunned by what Peter said next. You've taken care of me a lot until now. This time, do as you like in the new house. What? Thanks to you, both Sean and I can do whatever we want. Thank you. I don't think such words can excuse what has been done to me. I cannot forgive him. But given Peter's usual behavior, these words of gratitude might be considered rare. Perhaps I was also swept away by their rarity. Indeed, the newly built house I visited later was beautiful and seemed easy to use. I thought about which home appliances would be easy for you to use. It was equipped with the latest home appliances. After being treated so poorly until now, I was truly happy. But on the moving day, when I saw a pile of boxes in the corner of the room, I stopped in my tracks. We hadn't yet brought in our stuff. So why were there unfamiliar boxes here? Peter? What are these? As I pointed to the pile of boxes and asked, Peter grinned with pleasure. Oh, those are Sean and his family's stuff. I moved them in yesterday. Sean's? As I echoed, Peter puffed out his chest proudly.
Yeah.
They've helped me out a lot. Convincing you was thanks to them. Peter then started to spill the beans. It turned out that the new house was initially purchased because the eldest son and his wife had begged for it. Anticipating that I would oppose it, Abby had suggested this. Let's keep the purchase a secret. Just thank Diane after buying it and you'll be fine. Also, stock up on convenient home appliances. She'll be happy then. Don't worry, don't worry. Diane is easy to manipulate. Everything was under Sean and Abby's control. What is that? As infuriating as that was, Peter loudly declared. We're living together with Sean and Abby starting tomorrow. Living together. I glared fiercely at Peter. I haven't heard a single word about this. There's no need to say anything, is there? It wouldn't make any difference even if I did. Even if you object, living together is definite. I'm free to say it whenever I want. Peter was completely unrepentant. He must think there's nothing I can do now after the contract is done. That sounds incredibly selfish. Normally, wouldn't you at least discuss it? If I did that, you would just refuse, wouldn't you? Somehow you dislike Sean and Abby. It's not that I dislike them. I'm just asking them to stop relying entirely on their parents now that they're over 30. Of course, it's fine for Peter. He doesn't manage the finances or do any housework. Being flattered by his eldest son and wife, he must feel good. Instead, all the burden and consequences fall on me. I can't even tell how much money and time has been taken from me. It may sound harsh, but I'm sorry, I can't cater to Sean and his wife any longer. That couple acts as if receiving benefits is a matter of course, without a single word of thanks. Instead, they look down on me and treat me like a slave. Rather than living with such people. I was about to bring something up when suddenly, Peter's smartphone rang loudly. Oh. It's from Sean. They're nearby. I'll go pick them up. You just keep cleaning up. What? That's just too arbitrary. If you have a complaint, then it's divorce. Before I could reply, Peter, repeating his usual phrase, left the house. Just as I thought. This is how it turned out. I muttered to myself, quickly got ready, and left the house too. After finishing my errands and returning home, Peter came back with Sean and his wife. How about that? Nice house, right? Peter spread his arms proudly. Following behind, Sean and Abby exclaimed in admiration. Wow. It's big. Nice, nice. Really? Wow. This room even has a bay window. So cute. You like it? Then let's make this room Abby's. Really? I'm so happy. The three of them were frolicking happily. It's as if I'm invisible to them. I don't mind being treated as heir, but I have something I need to tell them. Well, actually. As I started speaking with a sigh, Abby, noticing, giggled.
Ah.
Sorry, Diane, we totally excluded you. I just got so excited. Her smile seemed almost provocative, so I smiled back gently. No, I don't mind. So, you're going to live together too? I was surprised since I hadn't heard about it. Sean quickly stepped forward. Isn't it more reassuring than just dad and mom living alone? It's a duty to parents, isn't it? You're lucky to have such a good son and his wife. Like father, like son. Sean's posture, chest puffed out, was just like Peter's when he made the living together announcement earlier. A duty to parents. Huh? That means you no longer need the financial support you've been asking for, right? If we're living together, you'll save on rent too. Sean hurriedly shook his head. That's a different story. What are you talking about? But it's a duty, parents, right? You're not thinking that rolling in here all happy because of the new house counts as a duty to parents, are you? I feigned confusion, and Sean's face flushed red. That's enough for a duty to parents. Seriously, living with such a sarcastic mom. Abby, if she harasses you, tell me right away. Sean turned back to Abby, who nodded solemnly. It's okay. Diane and I will get along just like before. Right, Diane? Living together means caring for each other in our daily lives, right? Are you sure that's okay? Of course. Abby nodded energetically. It won't be like before, where I take care of all the household chores. You understand that, right? Take care of your own needs. Just that simple, yet Abby furrowed her brows, puzzled. Huh? You're not going to make us do household chores, are you? We both work, you know? You're a housewife, right? I work too. I leave at 8 a.m. and get back after 5 p.m. There's hardly any night shifts or overtime, but my working hours are nearly the same as theirs. As for the salary, mine is even better. When I explained this, Abby burst into laughter. Oh come on, Diane, you're just making excuses. But you're still the housewife of this house, right? Housework is a housewife's job. Oh, Abby, you're so rigid. I didn't realize you held such old-fashioned views. People these days handle household chores just fine. Abby's face turned sour. I'm just preserving old traditions. You should understand, given your age. Oh, if that's the case. Shouldn't the person who should be working the most in this house be you? Abby, the daughter-in-law? And if we're going by old standards, shouldn't we respect our elders? That's a contradiction. Abby, who had never expected me to retort, glared at me with a mix of surprise and humiliation. What? Just because you bought the house, you think you can act all high and mighty? You. She was almost shrieking. Where had her usual calm and soothing voice gone? Abby's face turned bright red as she screamed hysterically. Sean was desperately trying to calm her down next to her. And Peter also rushed over to defend his son and daughter-in-law. That's enough, Diane. How can you say such things to my precious daughter-in-law?
Yeah.
Mom. You went too far. Apologize to Abby. Apologize? I merely stated the facts. After treating me like an old lady, now they play the victim. Peter said in a low voice, pressuring me as I kept silent. Listen? We'll eventually need their care. Think of this as prepayment for the favors we'll owe them. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to serve them a bit until then. The son and his wife nodded in agreement. Rather than prepaying any favors, these two seemed more likely to repay kindness with spite. Even if I were to need care, I would never want these two to take care of me. Just the thought made me shudder. Seeing my reaction, Abby seemed to misunderstand something and said cheerfully, "If you resist, I won't take care of you." The idea of being cared for by her, not knowing what she might do, terrified me. I don't wish for that. Even though my words came from the heart, Abby laughed heartily. Oh, playing tough again. Exactly. She always has to be so stubborn. You lack charm, you know. Even if your housework is perfect. That doesn't make you a good wife. A daughter-in-law should be more like Abby. Oh, Peter. Good for them, they get along so well. I don't want to stay here another second. I turned to Peter to say what I had missed earlier. I need to talk to you. Oh. A confession of love? Sean joked. Lucky you, Mom. You met someone as kind as Dad. Otherwise, you might still be single. After being interrupted repeatedly and accumulating frustration from all their remarks, I finally snapped. Raising my voice, I retorted to Sean. Huh? I am single, though? Huh? The spacious living room fell silent. Then, trembling, Peter finally spoke. What are you talking about? I am, in fact, single. Oh. And so are you. That can't be. He seemed utterly baffled. Peter looked at me, confused. You always say it, don't you? Divorce. That was just a joke, well, a form of communication. I stated simply, but seeing his lack of understanding, I explained slowly, as if to a child. Just as you wished, we are divorced. That means we're both divorced now. From now on, we are strangers. Complete strangers who have nothing to do with each other. Understand? How can I understand that from such an explanation? I don't remember agreeing to a divorce. When did you file the divorce papers? Peter's eyes were bloodshot. He lives only by the emotions and impulses of the moment, forgetting what he signed and what he said at that time. You definitely wrote it with your own hand. No. I didn't. We've been getting along fine. There haven't been any issues for years. That's because I stopped expecting anything from Peter. The absence of conflict is because I gave up approaching him. He didn't even realize that. You did write it. 20 years ago, when your affair came to light. Peter frowned for a moment, deep in thought. Back then, I was seriously contemplating divorce. We argued every night after the children were asleep. With such intense memories, he should remember by now. But Peter's expression remained clouded. You don't remember, do you? Shut up. There's no way I can remember something that long ago. Besides, it's invalid. Something that old is definitely invalid. Peter was furious. I won't let it be invalidated. You know, Peter, not just 20 years ago, but even now, you're having an affair. I think that's a valid reason for divorce. Peter's face, which had been bright red, suddenly drained of color. In an instant, he turned pale blue and weakly fell to his knees. Sean, with a forced smile, intervened as if to throw a lifeline. Having an affair is definitely bad, but please forgive him. Mom was just lonely, right? It's because Dad doesn't talk enough. If he just communicated better, surely. Despite butting in, Sean started saying completely off-the-mark things. Not enough words? Lonely? There was a time right after we got married when that might have been true. But those feelings have long since disappeared. No, that's not it. It was just too much trouble to bother with a divorce. Lately, I've been getting used to his selfishness. If that's the case, rethink it. There's no need to go through with a divorce. Why now? The eldest son and his wife desperately tried to stop me. Of course, they would. If we continued to live in this house together, hellish days awaited. No more mother to push housework onto. No more all-accommodating environment. Even a beautiful new house isn't worth it if it comes with a stubborn, selfish father. It might actually be a negative. Moreover, by hinting at even caregiving, he was practically tightening his own noose. Mom? I'll make Dad apologize. Sean tried to lift Peter, who had collapsed, by his arm. But Peter was completely dazed, limp like an octopus. Cut it out. It's Dad's fault that Mom. That's right. It's all Father's fault. The son and his wife, quick to shift the blame to Peter. I wasn't intending to defend Peter, but their behavior was just too appalling, so I told the couple. The reason I reconsidered divorcing was because of you too. Huh? Did you think I enjoyed taking care of you? After being used and ridiculed so much, it was truly painful. Yet, Dad said he would live with you too, so I decided there was no other choice but to divorce. I filed the divorce papers just a little while ago. Hearing this, Peter abruptly looked up, his eyes teary. Why didn't you tell me? Was there a need to? It wouldn't have changed anything if I had. Even if I said I hated it, living together was absolute, right? You said that yourself. It seemed he remembered what he had just said. Peter lost his words. I'll ask a lawyer I know for the details. Sean and Abby tried to stop me as I left, but I brushed them off, find another slave. As I left through the front door, I could hear Peter, Sean, and Abby arguing. A fight between two self-centered people likely won't end. I was glad to have avoided getting involved. I quickly walked away from there. Later, I heard that Peter had cut ties with Sean and Abby. The house, though newly purchased, was put up for sale because Peter couldn't afford the payments on his income alone. Peter moved back to his parents' home, living with his nearly 90-year-old mother. The former mother-in-law, still quite vigorous, surely hadn't expected her son over 60 to return home. There's a part of me that feels sympathy. However, since my relationship with the former mother-in-law wasn't good, I felt a bit relieved. Sean and Abby decided to move into Abby's parents' home. I believe her parents are quite hands-off, so maybe this will encourage them to be a bit more independent. If they come begging to me, I have no intention of helping. The divorce has allowed me to live alone for the first time in a while, and I'm moved daily by the sheer relief of it. Not having to care for others is more liberating than I had imagined. Now, I even have the luxury to explore new hobbies. I should have divorced sooner. From now on, I'll try to tackle everything with a positive attitude, ensuring I have no regrets.